This conference will now be recorded.
Now let's continue the discussion that we had in the last session regarding your practice. So in the last session, we talked until you are able to create all your baseline configurations and you're able to pass one entry, right? For basic of your GL transactions and basic accounts payable, basic accounts receivable. Is that right? So
Yes.
we talked about baseline configuration and GL postings. Third one, AP postings, AR postings. Now, all these are your basic fundamentals of FICO. We say these are all basic fundamentals of FICO. And you're not going to achieve anything with these settings. So these settings are not going to help you in your interview because you're not going to get any questions from this area. Okay, so you're not going to get any questions from this area. These areas are only to help you understand SAP basics. And after this is where you are going to get different scenarios, different business processes from SAP system. So what you have to do, you have to take everything as a business case, business scenario, and implement in SAP. To do all this business case or business scenario wise practice, you must be well versed with these basics. If you're not good at these basics, if you're having confusions at these basics, you will not be able to understand the business scenarios. So when we talk about a business scenario, you are not talking about configuration. Clear? Now, reason why we are specifying this, assuming you are attending an interview. Okay, let's assume that you are attending an interview. Majority of the cases, so you will approach the job market as an experienced candidate. Is this correct?
Yes, sir.
Is my statement correct? Because most of the SAP FICO requirements will look for minimum 2 years of experience. If you look at 100 jobs, more than 80 will look for minimum 2 years of experience or minimum 3 year of experience. In short, everybody is looking for an experienced candidate. Everybody is looking for experienced candidate. Point number one, clear? Everybody is straight away looking for an experienced candidate. Now, when they talk about experienced candidate, they are asking, we are looking for an experienced candidate. You are entering the market stating you're an experienced candidate. Their requirement is that we want experienced candidate. You're telling to meet their requirement, I am an experienced candidate. Chapter closed. So no further questions on this. They want experienced candidate. You are going as an experienced candidate. Clear? Now, here there are 2 points. Point number one, you are a trained candidate. Point number two, you're an experienced candidate. The 2 points: point number 1, you are a trained candidate; point number 2, you are an experienced candidate. Now it is very easy to identify in which category you fall under based on the way you are talking on the subject. Clear? We assume that we are going as an experienced candidate. Whatever we talk, the other person is not able to understand, but you are at wrong perception. It is clear cut, it is very straightforward. The other person can easily find out that you are a trained candidate, but the market is such that the openings for the entry level in SAP will require minimum experience. So this minimum experience, when we talk from the realistic perspective, from a reality job market point of view, it can be anything. It can be genuine experience or it can be a projected experience. Nobody is going to bother about whether you have a genuine experience or you have a projected experience, as long as you are good with the subject, as long as you are able to convince the other person. Clear? Now, having seen this, okay, having seen this statement, now there are 2 points. One is business process and requirement. The other one is SAP definitions and configurations. The 2 points. Point number 1, business process and requirement. Point number 2, SAP definitions and configuration. So this is expected from an experienced candidate. Wherever we talk about experienced candidate, if you're talking about experienced candidate, we're talking about appearing experience on your resume. Okay, if your resume says that this is an experienced resume, let's say 3-year experience, 2-year experience, whatever the experience you are showing, what kind of experience it is immaterial. It's not going to be considered at all. First point, if your resume is showing some experience or not. If your resume is showing some experience, okay, then this is expected from you: business process and requirement. This is expected from a trained candidate. This is expected from a trained candidate. Now, if you go as a trained candidate, chances of getting interview calls are very less. Even if you get a chance for an interview call, getting selected is very less if you are not a current year or the immediate previous year pass out. Okay, if you are going as a trained candidate, unless you are a current year pass out or an immediate previous year. If you're talking about 2023, fresher of 2023 is considered for training candidates. Fresher jobs is where people will look for trained candidates, and that too nowadays everybody is looking from direct colleges. Okay, people will go to the colleges, this say something called campus placements or CA passed out freshers. They're recruiting from such kind of institutions like your business schools. Directly, if you want to get into SAP without any experience, let's say as a fresher or as an entry level, it is very, very difficult. Because market is not so open for for inexperienced candidates or for trained candidate unless you project some experience. So that is the reason everybody who talks about SAP jobs, straight away it is open secret, open fact for everybody that you have to show some experience. You have to show some experience. In short, you have to project some experience. So what you will do, you will manipulate your prior experience into SAP. So there are different sources in the market to do that manipulations. You have to adopt that manipulation strategy to project some experience on your profile related to SAP. If you are projecting some experience on your resume, now let's keep this point aside, stating projecting experience. Let's talk, you are going to the market as an experienced candidate on SAP FICO. Nobody wants, nobody wants your SAP definitions. Nobody wants your SAP configurations. Nobody wants your SAP definitions. Nobody wants your SAP configurations. If you are with this mindset, if you are with this knowledge, you are going to get rejected most of the interviews that you go. Okay, so SAP configs definitions alone is not going to help us to clear the interview. No matter where you are attending, which company is immaterial. Straight away, you will get rejected. I'm telling you upfront, you will get rejected. Clear the interview. Clear? We're talking about configurations, definitions. Your interviewer is not at all interested to ask you questions. No surprise, your interview may get closed within 10 minutes. Your interview may get closed within 15 minutes. The ideal time for a FICO interview is 30 minutes. If you're only talking about all my questions, only the SAP configuration, only the definitions, purpose of this, I'm not convinced with you. I upfront come to know that you are a trained candidate. You do not have any hands-on experience on SAP. If I get that doubt, upfront rejection, no matter what. How accurately you talk the configuration, definitions and all, you are not going to get selected. This is the raw reality of the market. Okay, whether you believe it or you do not believe it, this is the fact. Right? Now, what is expected from you in the interview? What is expected from you in the interview? They expect you to talk the business process and business requirements. I am not concerned about your SAP configuration knowledge, SAP definition related knowledge, because if you join my company or if you join my project, I am going to give you the configuration document, which I ask you to look at the configuration document, do it on the system. I do not practically need your configuration knowledge because it's a copy paste work in any project. You are going to look at the existing configuration document, same steps with transaction code screenshot, you have to do it on the client system. But your client system is configured based on the business requirement, based on the business process. This business requirement, this business process will differ from business to business, from client to client. Clear? Configuration is straightforward. If you have to define some settings, there are fixed 3 transactions or there are fixed 5 transactions, fixed 10 transactions with the same screen, no change at all. But how you are going to use the same screen, same transaction codes to meet different business requirements of various clients is where your consulting knowledge, is where your understanding will come into picture. So this way you have to start developing, explaining on any topic to the other person. Try to avoid explaining configuration or the definitions of the subject. Clear? Let's say if you take some simple topics for an example, where you will practically understand what exactly mean by business process requirement or SAP definitions configurations. Let's say, let's talk about automatic payment program. This is one of the topics which is a must or 100% question in your FICO interview across the globe, across all the companies. Wherever you go, irrespective of your work experience, you will be questioned on this topic. When you talk about automatic payment program, or in fact, when a person is asked about have you worked on automatic payment program, first point that you have to pay attention is your question is always have you worked on APP. Your question is never do you know APP. Your question is never what is APP. These are not the questions that you get in any of your interview. No interviewer is going to ask you questions like this unless you are a fresher. Unless you are a fresher, nobody is going to ask you these questions. Now, having known the fact that you are not getting into the market as a fresher, these kind of questions are to be considered or to be ignored. Should we consider such questions or we should ignore them when you are preparing for the interview?
Ignore them.
You have to ignore them because it's an open secret. It's an open secret. It's a raw fact that you are getting into the market not as a fresher. Do not consider these kind of questions and do not prepare yourself with this kind of approach. When I say have you worked on automatic payment program, most of the people, especially the trained candidates, okay, most of the people, especially the trained candidates, will start explaining the APP configuration. They will start explaining the APP configuration. APP is automatic payment program used for making payments, issuing checks or whatsoever automatically. Configuration of APP is in 6 steps, 5 steps, whatever. All company codes, paying company codes, payment method, bank determination, all this. Who is asking you that question? Who asked you to tell the configuration? First instance. Nobody asked you to tell the APP configuration. The question was whether you worked on APP or not. But the mistake here is you are only focusing on APP. Even if somebody wakes you up in the night, you sleep, they say APP, you start explaining the config. That is how you are fine tuning your mind, which is very, very wrong. Why I'm telling this is very, very wrong? Because nobody is looking for such candidates in the market. Do not look for companies where they take any kind of candidate. Ignore such companies. Look at the companies, standard companies, where they look for genuine SAP consultants. What exactly they are looking from an SAP FICO consultant. Try to adopt that skill set. Okay, try to adopt only that skill set, not the configuration. If you're talking about only the configuration, 90% you will get rejected whatever the interview you attend. No doubt in it. People might tell you this, people might not tell you this, but this is the raw reality of the market. Okay, if somebody is asking you about have you worked on APP, your answer should be yes, you worked on APP, and then you have to talk in such a way for which client you worked on APP, and you have to be prepared at that level. Straight away, if you're explaining the configuration to me upfront, you are telling me that I am a trained candidate, I am a fake candidate. You are telling with your answers. Nowhere you are using I'm a trained candidate, nowhere you are telling you are a fake candidate, but the way you are answering is revealing the secret. that you will never realize, that you may not get to know. Reason, the way you're talking, the way you're explaining is revealing that you are not an experienced candidate. To talk like an experienced candidate, you do not have to have an experience, right? You need to have the knowledge in such a way when you talk, the other person feels that you are good at the subject, you are explaining the concept in a proper way, in the acceptable manner. When we talk about acceptable manner, always consider you're talking to a client, always consider you're talking to an interviewer. Will your client accept what you're telling? Will your interviewer accept what you're telling? If they put a cross question, are you in a position to convince? Give the answers back to the cross questions is the main point. Okay. And this is where most of the people will lack, because everybody, what they will do, there are certain topics for interview. Okay. When we say there are certain topics, FICO interview, even if you Google, even if you check in any way, people will even circulate the interview questions in different platforms. Even if you Google it, you will get interview questions company wise. X company FICO interview questions, Y company FICO interview questions, Z company FICO interview questions. But from that interview question, what you are looking at, you are looking at the topic again. Let's say they will ask baseline config. Though you put this here, this is a very rare question in any interview unless you are a fresher. Okay. And AP basics, AR basics. These 3 points, these 3 topics, rare topics in interview. When we say rare topics, nobody will touch these points. Nobody is going to touch these points in any of your interview unless you are a fresher. So first of all, when we talk about baseline configuration, when we talk about AP basics, when we talk about AR basics, what is included in it is what you have to understand. First of all, you must be in a position to segregate from the FICO point of view what is baseline config, what is AP basic or AP baseline, what is AR basics or what is AR baseline config. If you are unable to segregate between these 3 topics, it is of no use. You have completed your SAP FICO training, you are preparing for interview for FICO, it's of no use, because you are not going to differentiate the basics of a FICO. Once you are differentiating this, and once you understood, okay, from these 3 topics, nobody is going to ask questions or nobody is going to touch. The reason being, these 3 topics are very basic fundamentals to learn SAP FICO. If you have come to an SAP FICO interview, there are only 2 reasons. Either you are a trainee candidate or you are an experienced candidate. Am I correct?
Yes, sir.
Right? If you have come to an interview, which means option number 1, trained or experienced. In either of the case, you must be good at these 3 topics. First of all, nothing comes into any interviewer mind of these 3 topics, considering the fact you are good at the basics. Otherwise, you would not have come to the interview, right? Right? First of all, the interviewer thinks that, okay, you are aware of these topics. So that is why they do not touch this. There is nothing from an interview point of view to judge your knowledge, your skill set from these basics. So these questions are nowhere asked. If somebody is asking you these questions, you are very lucky that you got only the basic questions. Let's say after this, and you will get some topics like down payments and special GLs. How you will do down payments, how you will do special GLs of customer, vendor, and reporting. What kind of reports that a client uses or that a business uses on their day-to-day reporting. For their GL, what kind of reports are used? For documents, what kind of reports are used? For master records, what kind of reports are used? Similarly, for different purposes, what all the standard reports that are available. Right? It's not only about your FBL3 and FAGLL03, FBL1 and FBL51, not these reports. What are the other reports that a business uses on their day-to-day operations? Okay, then you have APP, automatic payment program. In this, you have to know check printing, bank letters, or DME. These points you have to know. When whatever we are writing here, you need not know the configuration of it if you want to clear the interview. I'm telling you again, if you want to clear the interview, you do not have to know the configuration. Clear? If you want to clear the interview, there is no need for you to know the configuration. There is no need for you to do the configuration on the system practically. If you know the concept, if you know the process flow, you can talk to anybody, you can clear any interview that you attend without even doing any config on this. Right? Now you have to know BRS, both manual and electronic, and taxation, sales purchase, and withholding tax, FIMM and FISD integrations. Now, whatever we are writing here, you do not even have to do the config on the system if you want to only clear the interview. If your intention is to clear your interview, no need of configuring this. If you know the concept properly, you can talk to anybody. I'll tell you why. What is your interview duration for any FICO?
30 minutes.
Right? Interview duration is 30 minutes. If we talk openly, is it possible for us to explain the APP process in 30 minutes? If I want to explain the overall APP process, I need more than 30 minutes. If I want to explain check printing, DME or BRS, taxation, whatever, I need definitely more than 30 minutes. Because according to us, when we talk about explaining any topic, we mean configuration. If you talk about APP, you will start with APP definition, APP configuration steps. There are 6 steps. All company, paying company, this on all the 6 steps you will tell. In each step, what you are going to do, you are going to explain, which will take definitely more than 5 minutes. And that configuration also, do we tell confidently? No. The way you are talking, the other person feels you are not confident. Right? In the similar way, on any topic, if you keep on explaining the full configuration, nobody has time to wait or nobody has time to listen to your configuration, especially in the interview. So keep the configuration point aside. Configuration is only for you to get an idea. That's it. Not to learn SAP. It's only to get an idea, because you are going to do configuration according to client requirement, according to business requirement. Your configuration is not standard. If your client is not okay with standard, you have to change your config. You have to do different enhancements and all. So you cannot say this is how the configuration is, only these are the 6 steps, this is how it works. Your client will tell, no, I do not want this, I want system to behave like this. You have to change the system behavior. Not everything is possible with configuration. Certain things are possible only with enhancements or technical developments. So make sure what kind of a business requirements will come in such a way wherein your standard configuration is not sufficient. You will have to bring developments or enhancements. So at which level, on what areas you have worked on such elements. Okay, so at that level, make sure you are able to prepare, you are able to answer. Now, like this, if we keep writing, you have validations, substitutions, asset accounting, you have month-end activities, you have year-end activities, right? You have material ledger, actual costing, whatever I'm writing, these are all your interview related topics. And assessment, distribution, cycles, budget, upload of GL, cost center, internal orders, how budgets are uploaded, and how trial balance is generated, how P&L and balance sheet are generated, how many projects you were part of, because we are going into the market as an experienced candidate. Experience means you must have worked on projects. How many projects you worked on? What kind of projects are they? What was your role in each project? If you talk about implementation project, what you were doing in the implementation project? At what level you were involved in the project? At what stage or at what phase? Which methodology was used in your project? Is this Activate methodology? Is this SAP methodology? Is this Agile methodology? Waterfall methodology? Scrum? All these points you have to know. And what exactly you were doing in the project? What was your contribution in the project? What kind of major issues, challenges you faced in your project? These kind of questions will come to you. And you tell me a scenario where you have done configuration according to the standard SAP, but your client was insisting that they want additional features of it or additional behavior from the system. Did you get any such kind of requirement? Did you face any such scenario wherein whatever you have done was denied by the client? And how did you overcome this? How did you convince your client? Or let's say your client is asking for a report. Your client is asking for a report, but that report is not available in standard SAP, but there is a similar report which meets around 70 to 80% of the standard expectation of your client. How you are going to tackle your client or deal with your client? how you will convince your client? Or if you are in this situation, what you are going to do? Are you going to develop a new report, or are you going to tell your client, no, this is what is available in SAP, I am not aware of the other reports? What you are going to do? Okay, if you say that there is an urgent production issue, and it has been assigned to you, or you have been asked to resolve a production showstopper or an urgent production problem, what will you do? Or they might ask you, did you work on any production showstopper issues or any production related issues? If your answer is yes, if your answer is no, be prepared for yes. What are those issues? What you were doing? If your answer is no, what was that project wherein there was no production issue? They might ask you, how come there was no production issue? How come your system is so stable that there was no problem at all? When your system was implemented, how long you have been in that project support? So these kind of questions is what typically you get if you go to an interview as an experienced candidate. Now, all these points, whatever we were talking, is nowhere related to any configuration. Am I correct? If this is related to configuration, if your interview clearance is dependent on configuration, you do not have to get trained on SAP. Is that right? If this is the fact that you can clear an interview with your configuration knowledge, there's no point of SAP training. You can get that configuration knowledge at free of cost from the market. There are different sources wherein you get better self training than the paid training. I'm talking only with respect to configuration. So do not go by configuration. That is going to help only to some extent. After that, your configuration is not going to help you clear your interview. Be very clear what I'm telling. Okay. Now, let's say they might ask, what was your role in your projects? Okay, what exactly you were doing? If this was an implementation project, what did you do? For this question, most of the people will answer what happens in an implementation project. But question is very specific to what you did in your project. I'm specifically asking about your contribution. I'm specifically asking about your contribution in your previous project. But what you are telling me what happens in a project. With this, straight away, I'm able to understand that you did not work on project. Agree? Correct? And similarly, when somebody is asking you that which project you are currently working, most of the people will tell, I am currently working for a support project. Majority of the people will tell your current project is a support project. Then you will get immediate question, which tickets you are currently working on? What is the SLA of your tickets? What is the priority level of tickets that you are currently working on? What are the timelines? So these kind of questions is what typically you will face in your interview in your 30 minutes. If it is straight away related to configuration, there is no point of preparing for interview specifically, because if you have done the configuration, let's say, let's say I am learning SAP FICO. When I'm learning SAP FICO, what I will do normally, I will practice. Yes, no?
Yes, sir.
I'm learning SAP FICO, I will practice SAP FICO. So, do I understand with one time practice? Do I understand with one time practice? If I
No,
create
sir.
a company code only one time, is that done? I'm good with company code. If I create chart of account one time, is that done? Yes, no? No, right? I have to definitely practice multiple times. I have to configure and test multiple times until I understand. Is this correct? This multiple time depends on person to person. I might understand within one config, I might understand it 2 times, 3 times, 10 times. I may not understand even if I do 100 times. Possible? If this is the case, this is what is normal case in anyone, right? This is the ideal case for any candidate who is getting trained on SAP. They will practice multiple times. They'll practice multiple times the configuration part or the data entry part. But why again you have to prepare configuration for your interview? If you have already configured it, if you have already posted the documents, why are you preparing for configuration, transaction, steps for your interview? Which means whatever the practice you have done by looking at the configuration document, you have done by looking at the notebook, you have done by looking at any other source. Your practice was done blindly. Your practice was done blindly without having any requirement, without having any scenario on your mind. Such kind of a practice, even if you do 100 times, it is not going to help you to become a consultant. Even if you become a consultant, it will not help you to grow as a consultant. To enhance your skill set, knowledge as a consultant, that knowledge is not going to help. Because you have no scenario, you have no requirement, blindly you are configuring, you do not know why you are doing it. If somebody is asking you, why did you configure this? Why you are posting for 100 rupees a transaction? Why you are debiting this entry? Why you are debiting that entry? What is your requirement? What are you trying to achieve? We do not know. We are simply configured one, let's say accounts payable. I have to post one vendor invoice to ensure my configuration is working fine. But that is not your role as a consultant, right? That is not your role as a consultant. If you are under impression that that is your role as a consultant, then you are wrong. Configuration is just 10% activity of a consultant role. The 90% of your activity is beyond configuration. If I want a consultant to do the configuration alone, I need a fresher. I don't need experienced candidate. If my intention, if my requirement is only to do the configuration on my system, I do not want an experienced candidate. I can very well manage with a fresher who knows the basic computer operating. Clear? But why people are expecting that we need experienced candidates? Every requirement of SAP FICO you will see something called experience. Yes, no? Every requirement that you see on the job portal, wherever it is, do you find experience or do you find fresher?
Only experienced, sir.
And if you look at, let's say 100 job openings, job postings on the any website, how many are experienced related, how many are fresher related? What percentage is related to experience? Half or more than half? Do you find half of the experienced jobs or more than half or majority are experienced jobs?
Majority experienced.
Majority is experience. Our job posters or the HRs, the companies who are looking for SAP FICO consultants are so innocent that they are simply putting experience. Do we think they are so innocent they do not know anything? No, right? If their intention is only to work on configuration side, they need not put experience, right? They can simply put trained candidates, but nobody will put that because your consulting works in a different environment. That I'll explain later. Your consulting is a different business environment. That business strategy process is entirely different. And you have to be adaptable to such environment, and the other person should feel, yes, I can consider this candidate, I can train this candidate on my project, I can mold this guy. But that impression you will give not with your configuration. In fact, your only configuration answers will lead to rejection. Your only configuration answers will upfront lead to rejection. You must have noticed people who are very good at practice. They would have practiced to so many company codes, but still they will not be able to clear the interviews. Whatever the interview they attend, they come back with rejection. You have seen such candidates. There are a lot of candidates like that in the market who are very good at configuration. They will close their eyes and they will tell all the configuration steps. In fact, there are people who will tell you on what screen what icons are there. Such good at such good they are at the configuration. They would have done lot of practice, hours together, days together. But when it comes to interview, they will again end up telling the same configuration because they are not aware what is needed in the interview, what you have to talk in the interview. That 30 minutes is so important for you. What you're talking, how you're talking, what points you have to mention in your interview. If you're not good at it, it is of no use whatever the effort you are putting in your for practice. And to understand that concept, it definitely takes time. It's not something that you will close within a month or within 2 months. Practically not possible. Right? Now, having said all this, having said all this, if you have to look for, if you have to look for an SAP FICO job, what you will have to do, first thing you have to look for a resume. What are the points that I need to look for an SAP FICO job? First, I need to prepare my resume. Correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, when I prepare my SAP FICO resume, I'll have to upload in any of the job portal, maybe Naukri, Monster, LinkedIn, wherever. I put on job portal. And when I put on job portal, nobody is going to call you. You have to put in your effort. Now the market trend has changed. It's not that I'll put my resume on Naukri, Monster everywhere. Every day I will check my mobile phone, how many calls I'm getting. You may not get any call. Now trend has changed. Now there are different ways for you to get interview calls. So you have to go in that manner. Now when you open any website, when you look for SAP FICO consultant job, everywhere you will find something called JD or job description. Correct?
Yes, sir.
For every SAP FICO job, there is something called job description, in which they will mention what are their expectations from the desired candidate or from the candidate they are looking for. If you say that I am looking for a FICO consultant with 3 years of experience, I am not going to write configuration, must know APP configuration, must know company code configuration, business area creation, APP configuration. I am not going to write that in any of my JD. If you want, open 100 job descriptions, see how many job descriptions are only asking for configuration. Your interview, in fact, most of your interviews are based on your job description. most of your interviews are based on job description, which means if you look at the job descriptions, you may not understand half of the contents of the job description. You may not understand half of the content from the job description. So first thing that you have to start is look at the job description, try to go through the points that are listed in the job description. From a FICO consultant, what are they expecting? Your SAP FICO course content is different, your SAP FICO job description is different, entirely different. You will not find most of the things of your FICO content in your job description. Download SAP FICO course contents from Google and compare your SAP FICO course content from your SAP job descriptions. See how far you are able to map it or match it. So you will find huge differences. You will be surprised to know certain terminologies, certain points only in the job description, because you may not be aware of this during your training, or when you're preparing for interview, nobody would have told you this. You may not be aware of this. You are under impression that if I know these configurations, I can clear interview. And if you know the raw facts, around 10% of trained candidates only will get SAP FICO job. You believe it or you do not believe it, this is fact. Hard to digest, but this is the reality. This is your ground reality. What is happening to the 90% of SAP FICO trained candidates? Talk to the people who are trained on SAP, you will get the answers. Why they could not get into SAP FICO? Why they were left as a dropouts? Talk to the candidates who are already trained on SAP, you will get the different answers, different reasons. Which means the remaining 90% of the people are blindly going with the configuration. They're blindly going with configuration. The way they are going, the similar way they're coming back. Because they will never realize your configuration knowledge is not going to get you the job. Open fact, open secret. Many people may not tell you, but this is the open secret. As I said, if you want to clear SAP FICO interview, you do not have to practice SAP FICO. This is not a practical exam. This is not a lab exam. The other person will ask you a question, you will have to answer it in a convincing way. Can I check whether you are really able to configure in the system? I cannot check, right? Well, what I am going to believe, I am going to believe in what you are telling. Agree? Yes, no? If I tell how do you do bank reconciliation statement, whatever the steps you are telling, if they are aligned or if they are correct with what we actually do on a project, I am fine with you. I'm not going to give you a task. You create one company code, do this BRS for this bank, these transactions you upload, show me the output. Who will check that? Nobody will check that. So in that way, if you are preparing for an interview, it is not going to take much time. But once you enter the job, there your talking knowledge is not sufficient. There you need practical knowledge, because configuration is one time activity. Configuration is how many times?
One time activity.
One time activity. Now from that configuration, you will get different errors, you will get different changes, corrections, updations, upgradations, different things will come from it. Now if I ask you, now there is a problem in BRS. Now when I say there is a problem in BRS, your BRS configuration knowledge I don't want. I don't want your BRS configuration knowledge because I do not want you to configure BRS. My BRS is already configured. I am facing a problem in it. Now I want your business process understanding of BRS. How BRS is executed in an organization. What process is basically followed and how BRS is configured in your client, and whether you are able to understand your client current process and your client SAP configured process. Right? Not the exactly same way you learnt BRS in your training will work in a real environment. It may be different. There may be some enhancements, customizations. You have to understand it. And when there is a problem coming, you cannot say, no, in my practice, we were not doing like this. Who will listen to you? Nobody will listen to you, right? Can you tell that, no, I did not see this kind of BRS before? Can you tell? No, right? You cannot say. No other option. You have to accept. You have to work on it. How you are going to work on it? Such things, even if you Google, even if you YouTube, you will not find. That is the reality. And this reality will have market in the present situations. Let's say you get proxy interviews, right? You get on job support, you get backdoor jobs. The person who trained you will tell that I will help you in your proxy interview. I will arrange somebody to clear your interview. The person who trained you tell that I'll give you support on your job. The person who trained you will tell I'll assist you with some consultants, so they will help you get into the job in a backdoor. These are all not done by the people. These are all not done by the people who are outsiders. These are all done by the people who are training you mostly. But you have to be smart enough. You have to be smart enough not to be under this kind of a trap. Never fall under this trap. This is trending in the market currently. Clear? Now you are
Yes.
not even in a position to clear your interview. You are taking somebody's help to attend your interview on your behalf, in short proxy. Then how do you think that you will be able to work in a project? Right? You are taking on job support for your day-to-day issues. How do you think that you will manage? How many days you will manage like that? Why all these points are coming? Because you are only knowing a configuration. That is the only reason for this. For this reason, for this reason, for this reason. The reason is you are aware of only configs. This is the reason. No other reason for this. You are only aware of the config. And now later on you will understand, when you are actually attending interviews, when you attend at least 1 or 2 interviews, you will realize whatever the configurations I have done so far, nobody is asking me that. Right? Everybody is asking different things. They are asking questions in a different way, which is not what I have learned. All I have learned is the configurations, but nobody is asking for it. What you will do? No other option. If you wanted to survive the market for different circumstances, you may end up approaching a proxy interview, you may end up approaching on job support, you may end up approaching backdoor job. Why all this? Because you have not learned SAP FICO the way it has to be learned. You have not gained the knowledge the way you have to gain it. Blindly you are behind the configuration, blindly you are doing whatever you have been taught. Clear? First of all, you will have to change your mindset. When you are in SAP FICO, you have to change your mindset. It is not about doing the configuration. First, take that point out from your mind. Okay, it is not about configuration. Config is only 10% of a FICO consultant activity. If you know the 10% of a FICO consultant activity, 100% you will not get a job. Correct? Huh? Config is 10% of a FICO consultant activity. And do you get job with 10% knowledge? Yes, no?
No, sir.
Obviously, no. And that is the reason you will find lot of people looking for job on SAP FICO, lot of people losing hope, lot of people quitting SAP. Only one reason, you are only doing configuration blindly without knowing the requirement, without having any kind of prerequisite, without having any kind of knowledge on a business process. If you are able to learn, if you are able to understand business process and then try to map your business process into SAP, you will be successful wherever you go. You will be confident enough to talk to your interviewer. You will be confident enough to talk to your colleagues in your office. You will be confident enough to talk to your client project. You can manage all this without knowing configuration also. Nobody is going to ask a configuration. In fact, you can take configuration printout, look at this step by step what they are doing, including T code program, everything, do a copy paste. Nobody minds it. So when it is so open that in a real environment, in a project, you will do the configuration by looking at the document. Why are we behind the configuration? Valid point. When you know that you have to do configuration by looking at the document, why are you behind configuration? You have to catch the logic called requirement, requirement, business process. And if you are a FICO consultant, you have to know the finance business process. Finance business process is all about accounting, right? Basic accounting is mandatory, without which you will not understand. You will complete all the configurations, you will get everything, but whatever is actually needed for you to clear an interview, that will be missing. Clear? So in short, what ideally you have to do is take main topics of SAP FICO which are asked as business scenarios or requirements in interviews. Okay, let's say to take some examples. Everybody knows asset accounting, right? Everybody knows asset accounting. This is one of the mandatory topic. Do not go by the asset accounting configuration. Nobody will ask you to explain config of asset accounting. Now, having S4HANA in the picture now, they might ask you what are the changes from ECC to S4HANA asset accounting. How do you load data in ECC? How do you load data in S4HANA with respect to fixed assets? How do you migrate the asset data? Okay, and let's say some example is there is a fire in the one of the office or go down or showroom. Possible?
Yes, sir.
Possible or not? There is a fire or accident. Okay, in your office, in your go down, in your showroom, there may be different assets possible, right? There may be different assets, maybe laptops, AC, air conditions, computers, furniture. There may be different assets on it. Now everything is burnt, everything is damaged. If there is a fire accident, or if there is any incident, or if a theft happened, everything has been stolen. Now you have lost around, let's say, 800 assets are lost or damaged. Now, if an asset is lost or damaged, what actually we have to do? We have to remove that asset from the system,
Yes, sir. Retirement.
right? We have to do something called retirement scrapping. Now, to do the retirement scrapping, there is one transaction wherein you have to do one by one. But how many assets are damaged? 800.
800. Yes, sir.
Now, do we have to do 800 asset retirement one by one?
No, sir.
Do you retire asset one by one? No. Then how you are going to do it? You may get similar questions in your interview. How you are going to do this? We cannot say that they go to this XYZ transaction code, put the asset number, repeat the same step 800 times. Can we say this to the client? If this is the case, your client will tell, please, I will give my user ID password, you do it from your side. Then you will come to know the pain I go through by doing this 800 times. Nobody will accept it. And your client might ask you, I want to know what is my P&L impact because of this 800 assets. Okay, they might ask you, I want to know this so and so premise has been damaged. I want to know how many assets are there in it and what is the current value of it. What is my P&L hit? How much it is going to affect my P&L? They may not be able to generate the reports or look into the system at that level. So they approach you as a consultant. You cannot say that, no, I'm not aware of this. I only know the configuration. Can we say that? Can I say, no, no, I only know the configuration. You take care of your interests. Can you say that to your client or to your manager? Yes, no.
No, sir.
You cannot say, right? You have to help them out, or you have to accept, I don't know. I have no experience. I have not worked on this before. But you cannot give excuses. You have to accept upfront openly that you have not worked on such kind of requirements. You are not aware of this. So how you are going to tackle these kind of requirements? If these kind of questions are coming, here your configuration is not going to help. First, you have to understand what happened. What is the business requirement? What is expected from this? And what you are going to tell them. So at that level, if you are able to answer, even if you are answering in an incorrect way, because you are able to catch the point, you are able to connect the dots, you will get selected. You have not got selected because your answer is correct. You have selected because your approach was correct. Your thought process is correct. The way you are thinking about SAP is correct. So I can easily fine tune you. But it is very difficult to fine tune a person who knows only configuration. It's very difficult. Because they will not listen to you, they will not understand. They will tell, no, 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 this is how it has to be configured. Because they do not know the requirement. There is a different requirement. You have to do the things in a different way. They are not aware of it. Clear? So I'll give you the detailed topics and what exactly you have to prepare on each topic. Okay. Now, once you are able to prepare them in the similar way that I give you, You talk to anybody, everybody will accept what you are telling. Nobody will tell that you are wrong. Clear? And any cross questions you are getting, you should have the answers to justify your statement, why you said that. Clear? All right. Let me stop this.